I want to thank Penn State University, Professor Lokshina, and Rector Dmitrievich for the kind invitation to come and address this topic today on the political and economic crisis in the United States, which in effect is also a crisis of society. So it is the very middle class that was expanded and in fact even created in the past century, which is now under threat. The crisis has been underway for some 3 decades, but it's primarily the past 5 years that I want to discuss. Now, as you all know, in 2008, there was a global financial crisis which was centered on Wall Street. And in effect, this represented, again, a crisis which had been building for some 3 decades. A crisis which was, in effect, a response to a previous crisis of competitiveness in the world system, with the United States beginning to fall behind. The response to that crisis by the United States was to shift toward its comparative advantage in finance. Now, after some 3 decades of this continued focus on finance, the system finally succumbed to its contradictions. In the 1970s, finance took some 15% of corporate profits in the United States. Now, this represented the real need in the economy for some financial intermediation. By the time the Wall Street crisis hit in 2008, that number was no longer 15%, it was 40%. Now, it doesn't take a specialist in economics to understand finance cannot add some 40% of the total value of the economy. In short, it was no longer enabling entrepreneurial activity, it was taking wealth out of the real economy. Now, as the power of finance grew, the fortunes of the middle class declined. And we have to think about just what the middle class is. The middle class represents the engineers, the researchers, the teachers, the doctors. In short, the people that make society function. There is no society without them. But in effect, the growth of finance was coming at the expense of the middle class, directly transferred from the middle class to finance. Well, as I said, this all came to a crash in the fall of 2008. And it was at this point that people such as myself thought that we would finally begin to reassess the value of this model and to take a different course.